My name is Pablo Palacios, and this is the story of how I became a man.
Back in 2016, I was 26 years old and thought I had it all figured out. I had published a book with a major publisher in Sweden, and when it was translated into Spanish, I was invited to the International Book Fair in Chile, the same country my father comes from. My wife and I bought one-way tickets. We thought we were beginning an adventure, and in many ways, we were. But underneath the excitement, something was breaking. And months later, we stood at a crossroads. She went north to Peru. I went south into Patagonia. Somewhere along the way, I received a letter. It was long and honest. Her message was simple. I don't need another crying snot boy. I need a man. So who are you gonna be? I remember reading those words and feeling something shift inside me. Because she was right. I wasn't the man I wanted to be. I was drifting, avoiding commitment and blaming my circumstances. Fast forward about a year. My wife and I were living in a tiny apartment in Copenhagen with our newborn daughter. I didn't speak the language. I didn't know anyone. I was now a husband, a father, and a provider. But internally, I still felt like a boy waiting for someone to show me the way. That's when I realized no one was coming to rescue me. No one was gonna hand me clarity or purpose. If my life was going to change, I had to change. So I started small. I asked myself, what do I truly dream of? And then broke that dream into actions. I went back to school. I started waking up early to train and meditate, preparing my body and mind so I wouldn't drown under the pressure. I paid attention to the promises I made and whether I kept them. I knew the story I was telling myself about myself and the world had to change. So I made a deal with myself. No more shortcuts, no more small lies. Then, time passed, and there was no breakthrough moment, just thousands of small decisions repeated day after day. And slowly, things began to change. For years, I had carried an anger that followed me everywhere. I thought it made me strong, but underneath the anger was grief and fear, emotions I had never allowed myself to feel. It affected everything: my marriage, my ability to be present with my daughter, my tendency to blame the world instead of looking honestly at myself. But the more honest I became, the less power those things had over me. I could feel myself softening. The tension I'd carried for years began to loosen. I could see things change in my marriage and in my relationship with my daughter. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't running away from something. I was moving towards something. I finally knew who I was and why I was here. But even though my life was changing, I kept noticing the same thing around me. Men were struggling. Friends, fathers, husbands. Men who looked like they had it together, but were carrying something heavy underneath. And most of them were carrying it alone. The more I reflected on my own journey, the more I realized something. I hadn't changed by myself. Every meaningful shift in my life had happened in relationship, through challenge, through being seen. Historically, becoming a man was never a solo journey. Boys became men in the presence of other men, through guidance, responsibility, and brotherhood. Years later, I attended my first men's gathering. I didn't find perfect men. I found honest ones. Men talking about fatherhood, marriage, failure, loneliness, and purpose. And listening to them, I realized something that hit me hard. The things I'd struggled with for years weren't mine alone. Other men carried them too, but silently. I used to think strength meant handling everything on my own. I don't believe that anymore. I think strength is being willing to look honestly at yourself, take responsibility for your life, and let yourself be seen by other men doing the same. Because some things are simply too heavy to carry alone. Fatherhood is one of them, marriage is another, or trying to become the man you're capable of being all by yourself. I mean, I still haven't arrived, but every day I get another opportunity to choose the man I want to be, to stop hiding, to stop waiting, and take one more step forward. And maybe some part of you recognizes that feeling, that sense that there's more in you than the life you're currently living. More truth, more courage, more of yourself. And if that's true, then you're not alone. That's why I've created Fatherhood Culture.